Hello guys, in our previous video, you know, we had completed the paragraphs here where it's somewhere in Jackson. I think that I should revise this paragraph once again for the better clarity. So, Jackson barks at Evans to clean himself up for the exam and to remove his filthy hat. Evans' hand immediately flies up to his hat and smiling, he said sadly, and explains that it's the only thing that's ever brought him any sort of luck in life, and that he especially needs it for his exam today. Evans thinks to himself that there must be a tiny core of compassion somewhere inside of Jackson. Now we should move to the next page. So this is our next page and we have to start from here. So just this once, then Shirley Temple. If there was one thing that Jackson genuinely loathed about Evans, it was his long wavy hair and get saving. So Jackson gruffly lets him keep it, but just this once, then Shirley Temple. Jackson thinks to himself that the only thing he genuinely hates about Evans is his long wavy hair. So Jackson allowed him to wear the hat just once, and he also teased him by calling him Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple was an actress who had long wavy hair. Jackson hated Evans' long and wavy hair, and he then asked him to shave. So at 8:45 the same morning, the Reverend Stuart McLeary left his bachelor flat in Broad Street and stepped out briskly towards Carfax. So it was 8:45 a.m. and Stuart McLeary, who was a member of the church, left his bachelor flat made for a single person, in Broad Street. The weatherman reported temperatures considerably below the normal for early June, and a shallow crown clerical hat provided welcome protection from the steady drizzle which had set in half an hour earlier and which now spattered the thick lenses of his spectacles. So what happened? He started walking fast towards Carfax. The weather reports and claimed that the temperature would be below normal in early June. McLeary was wearing a black overcoat and a clerical hat used by church clergy to protect himself from rainfall that started within half an hour. It had also splashed water on his spectacles. In his right hand, he was carrying a small brown suitcase which contained all that he would need for his morning duties, including a sealed question paper, envelope, a yellow invigilation form, a special authentication card from the examinations board, a paper knife, a Bible he was to speak to the women's guide that afternoon on the book of Ruth, and a current copy of the church times. So hereby, he was carrying a small brown colored suitcase in his right hand. It had all the things required for his morning duties, such as a sealed question paper envelope, a yellow supervisor form, a special permission card that verified him as a supervisor, a blunt knife to cut the seal of the paper, a Bible as he had to speak for a women's association on the book of Ruth, and the latest copy of the church times. So in this paragraph what happens that Reverend Stuart McLeary leaves his bachelor flat and makes his way across town to Oxford Prison, where the 2 hours exam is scheduled to begin at 9:15 a.m. And in his briefcase is the proctor form, the exam in a sealed envelope, a special authentication card from the examinations board, as a Bible, for McLeary talks later that they had the women's guild on the Book of Road and a paper knife and an issue of the church times. The 2-hour examination was scheduled to start at 9:15 am. Evans was lathering his face vigorously when Stephens brought in two small square tables and set them opposite each other in the narrow space between the bunk on the one side and on the other a distempered stone wall. Next, Stephens brought in two hard chairs, the slightly less battered of which he placed in front of the table which stood near the cell door. So the 2-hour exam was planned to begin at 9:50 am. Evans was foaming his face strongly when Stephens brought in two small square tables. He put them opposite each other in the small space between the bed and the painted wall. He then brought in two chairs. The less worn out chair was placed in front of the table, which was near the cell door. Jackson made a small final appearance and asked Evans to behave properly. Evans turned and nodded. And those? Jackson pointed to the pin-ups of. Evans turned and nodded again. I was going to take down anyway. Here A means them. A minister, isn't he? He chap coming to sit in, I mean. And how did you know that? Asked Jackson quietly. Well, I had to sign some forms, didn't I? And I couldn't help. Means help. Evans drew the razor carefully down his left cheek and left a neat swathe in the white leather. Can I ask you? So in this line, we have got that after Evans washes up, Jackson pays him another visit. He orders Evans to take down his posters of pin-up girls on the wall, and Evans notes he was already planning on taking those down. Given that his proctor is a minister, Jackson quietly asks Evans how he knows his proctor is a minister, and Evans says that it was listed on the forms he signed earlier. Not a very neat job, conceded Jackson. They are not. They don't honestly think I am going to try to it. They are taking no chances. Evans, nobody in his senses would take any chance with you. Who is going to listen in? So here Evans continued with his shaving and sought Jackson's permission to ask him something. He then asked him why the officer had put a microphone in his cell, and he turned his head towards the space above the door. Then Jackson admitted that the microphone was not put perfectly as Evans easily spotted it. Evans questions him why they think that he would run, and Jackson replies that anyone with a sense would not trust him. Evans then questions him that as to who was going to listen to him. So Jackson replied that the governor would listen as he didn't trust him. He don't trust you a bloody inch, and nor do I. I will be watching you like a hawk. Evans, so keep your nose clear. He walked towards the door. So Jackson also told him that even he didn't trust him, and so he would watch him like a hawk, a bird that keeps its eye on its prey. And he finally asked him to keep his nose clean, and Evans agreed. He knew this already, and so he kept a neat hanky on the bed. Jackson wished him good luck before leaving. So in the little lodge just inside the prison's main gates, the Reverend S. McLeary signed his name neatly in the visitors' books and then walked side by side with a silent prison officer across the exercise yard to D wing, where he was greeted by Jackson. The D wing's heavy outer door was unlocked and locked behind him. The heavy inner door, the same, the McLeary was handed into Stephen's keeping. Now the priest, Mr. McLeary, signed his name in the visitor's book at the gatehouse. He then followed the prison officer through the exercise yard to D wing. There he was greeted by Jackson. The heavy outer door of the D wing was open and then shut behind him. The same happened when they entered through the inner door. McCleary joined Stephens. Jackson ordered Stephens to remove the razor from the cell. Get the razor, murmured Jackson. Stephen nodded. Well, keep your eyes skinned clear. Stephen nodded again, and McCleary fit changing up the iron stairs, followed his new guide, and finally stood before a cell door where Stephens opened the peephole and looked through. That's him, sir. So what happens? Jackson ordered Stephens to remove the razor from the cell. Stephen agreed, and he also told him to keep a close watch. McCleary made a vibrating sound while climbing up the stairs, following his new guide. When they reached the entrance of the cell, Stephens opened the peephole and informed McCleary that he was the person who had to take the exam. Evans, facing the door, sat quietly at the farther of the two tables, his whole attention riveted to a textbook of elementary German grammar. Stephens took the key from its ring and the cell lock sprang back with a third metallic twang. So Evans was sitting quietly, facing the door and slightly away from the two tables. He was concentrating on the elementary German grammar. Stephens took one of the keys from the ring and opened the lock. The lock of the cell made a ringing sound after it sprung up at 9:10 am. The governor switched on the receiver of the microphone.